hit a huge milestone last week. Somehow we hit 100 subs. Me and Greg still don't know why. You guys rock with us, but we're thankful that you do. Our new goal is 125 by the end of the year. Hopefully we can hit it, but if not, it's all gravy from here. Just want to give everybody a huge thank you once again. Just like the rest of the NFL, our team's been hit with COVID. Greg's out this week. He caught the virus. Hopefully everybody stayed safe this weekend with their family. I'm here with the scuff set up. You get to listen to the monotone medley once again. I don't know how Batman handles on without Robin, but we're going to try it this week. So let's get right into it. Starting us off for the 50 spot, we have the illustrious T.Y. Hilton having himself one of his best games to date. 4 catches, 81 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5 targets. This is not the T.Y. Hilton of old. That is obvious. You've known that all season. Last week, he had one of his best games against a high-powered Titans offense. I think the Texans are equally, I wouldn't say equally, but they're definitely, they got some juice. Deshaun Watson's been slanging it. T.Y. Hilton played 73% of the snaps, so he's definitely still getting the work. It really just comes down to if you trust in T.Y. Hilton, which you definitely shouldn't, and I don't know how you could, but going forward, this could be things to come. I think he's worth a risk against the Texans this week. At 49, we have Damiere Byrd taking on the Chargers, having himself another average game, 3 catches, 33 yards on 7 targets. He did play 85% of the snaps, which is second on the team, but it is worth noting that his snap count has taken a drop. He was playing 99, 98% of the snaps every game. I think with N'Keal Harry back and Jakobi Meyers emerging, it's definitely eating into Damiere Byrd's role, but just because of the amount of time he sees on the field, the volume can always be there. It really just depends if Cam Newton's going to throw the ball more than 18 times and complete 9 passes. At 48, Mike Williams, 3 catches, 26 yards on 5 targets. You know the drill with Mike Williams. It's boom or bust. 81% of the snaps. That was second on his team last week. Jalen Guyton has definitely been securing a role for himself, which is also the Mike Williams role, so it's a little tough there, but Mike Williams has proven he can do some other things. With Austin Eckler back, it does eat into his role. Austin Eckler saw 16 targets, so maybe sometimes when Justin Herbert was forcing the ball down the field a little bit more, now he can just rely on Austin Eckler. It's always boom or bust, though, with Mike Williams. You just got to pick on the right week and hope you're lucky. Moving on to 47, we have Jalen Raegor. 3 catches for 11 yards, but he did have 7 targets. That's the highlight here. Played 61% of the snaps, which was surprisingly the second highest behind Greg Ward at 68. The real issue here is Carson Wentz, who has just been atrocious. If you watched the Monday Night Football game, you saw the stat. His touchdown ratio has gone from 4.7 in 2017 to 2.3 in 2020. And that's just touchdown to interception ratio. That's not even including all the fumbles he's having, which are just an absurd amount. It's hard to trust any Eagles wide receiver with Carson Wentz back there, but I like Jalen Rager's talent. Hopefully Carson Wentz can just get his shit together. Moving on to 46, we have Cole Beasley, who did not have the game I was hoping he would with John Brown out. Gabriel Davis really stepped up, played 97% of the snaps. Cole Beasley only 85. They're taking on the 49ers this week, which with Richard Sherman back, it is possible that he could see an uptick in volume because he only had 4 targets last week, 2 catches, 25 yards, but he did throw a nice little dime, 20-yard touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis. Hopefully he can continue to be utilized in wonky roles like that and maybe see some extra points here and there. At 45, we have Alan Lazard taking on the Eagles. Always a tough matchup in the secondary for Darius Slay, but he did get beat pretty bad this week. I think Davante Adams will definitely beat him, but maybe give him some tight coverage, maybe force Aaron Rodgers to look other people's way. I think Alan Lazard's the guy. He had 6 targets last week and only played less than half the snaps. He did take a huge hit, but he returned to the field, so that's good news. The 6 targets is what I'm looking at. I'm really liking that. It's getting closer to his role that he had before he had his injury. The touchdown, always nice. It's worth noting the Packers signed Tavon Austin. Probably means nothing, but could start utilizing him in different roles. Maybe eat into a small amount of his volume. Up next at 44, we have Christian Kirk taking on the Rams. I'm expecting a lot of Jalen Ramsey, DeAndre Hopkins this week. That's going to be a great matchup. Should leave Christian Kirk open. 3 catches on 6 targets last week. He's still playing a lot of snaps, 86%. Larry Fitzgerald is not going to be playing, so that just frees up another mouth. Hopefully, Kyler Murray's a little less banged up and they don't rely on the run as much. But either way, with Jalen Ramsey on DeAndre Hopkins, I think Christian Kirk is going to be feasting. At 43, we have Hunter Renfrow, the oldest looking white boy in the league, taking on the Jets. A very, very nice matchup. Hopefully they can bounce back as a team because they looked absolutely atrocious. He had himself a day, though. 7 catches, 73 yards on 9 targets. Still was third in the team on snaps behind Nelson Agholor and Henry Ruggs, but they only played 1 or 2 more snaps, so nothing too serious. I like Hunter Renfrow's upside against the Jets, but it's always a kind of a shit show picking which Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver you want to go to. I just think that Hunter Renfrow has a safe floor, a lot of PPR work, maybe not the big touchdown that Nelson Agholor or Henry Ruggs can get you, though. Moving on to 42, we have Jerry Jeudy taking on the Chiefs. We'll just completely ignore last game. That was fucking terrible. The fact that they even had to play that game is a tragedy on its own. I think that when you don't have a quarterback and you have a wide receiver playing and you're giving him not even close to optimal times to throw the ball, they were just really fucking him up with the place selection. I think this was bound to happen. It's unfortunate that he threw more interceptions than completions, but all the quarterbacks have been activated. Jerry Jeudy's going to be back on his bullshit. Boom or bust, you know how it is. But the Chiefs, they're going to be lighting up the scoreboard. They're going to need big plays. I like Jerry Jeudy this week. Coming in hot at 41, we got Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk taking on the Bills. He was on the COVID reserve list, but he has come off, so it's going to be his time to shine. It is worth noting, though, that not only has Deebo Samuel returned, also Kendrick Bourne. So his role is not set in stone at the moment. It's going to definitely be a wait and see thing. But with the opportunity he was given, he really made the most of it. I think that he's earned his opportunity. I do hope that the coaches feel the same way about it. I think he'll move into the wide receiver 2 slot. If not, they'll put him into the 3, into the actual slot, and then I think he can still make big plays going up against safeties and middle linebackers. So that might even be better for him. Moving on to 40, we have Keke Coutee. He had a very low-scoring game. 2 catches, 17 yards, 3 targets. But the beauty of it all here is Will Fuller's suspension. I mean, I don't want to get into how you take stuff that is on the list and how these doctors get that and they think that they won't find out. I don't know how these people don't get in trouble for this, but Will Fuller, he fucked up. He knows about it. Was it on purpose? I don't know. Was it a complete accident? I also don't know. But either way, Keke Coutee, I like his upside going forward. He's going to be the second wide receiver. That was confirmed. I don't think he'll be the second pass catcher, though. I definitely think the tight ends are going to step up. Deshaun Watson's always loved to throw to his tight ends and his running backs. Keke Coutee has been known to be lazy. It's really going to be up in the air how he performs, but that was also with Bill O'Brien. So Moving on to 39, Michael Pittman. 2 catches, 28 yards, very, very below average, but 9 targets. That's what we're looking at here. It does not really help the fact that he played the Titans earlier and went off. And I don't know what the translation here was. I think Philip Rivers obviously has something to do with this, but the fact that he saw 9 targets, played the most snaps on his team, has played over 80% of snaps the past 4 weeks. He's really established himself in that offense as the wide receiver one. And going forward, just in his career, it's going to be a huge help. And he's going to be making moves out here. But against the Texans this week, I think he'll really pull something out of his bag. Go back to the last few weeks where he was popping off. I think last week the volume was good, the production wasn't there, but that's something that can always be corrected. Moving on to 38, we have Tim Patrick taking on the Chiefs. Talked about the QB situation earlier when we mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick played the most snaps on the team, 72%. With all the quarterbacks back, I think we're going to be seeing classic Tim Patrick, just a 10-point to 15-point game, safe floor, potential for touchdown, just a all-around pretty good player. Nothing too explosive, but definitely has the potential to make big plays. Very reliable receiver overall, and a solid flex play. 37, Nelson Agholor, coming off a 5-catch, 54-yard game on 6 targets. The Jets this week is a juicy matchup. It's a little tougher, though, because Josh Jacobs and Devontae Booker could just run train on the entire Jets defense. And then there's really no need for big Nelson Agholor plays. He's still getting some shorter yardage passes, so that's good to know. He's honestly really surprised, I would say, all Eagles fans, but just the league in general, showing that he can be consistent. He can be a wide receiver one. Tied for first in snaps on his team with Henry Ruggs. So going forward, I think he'll probably stay in that realm. Hunter Renfrow is definitely the slot guy. Hopefully Nelson Agholor can show he's got even more. 36, Jamison Crowder taking on the Raiders. He didn't play the best on his team, and he's not even playing the most snaps. But I think that he's the best talent on the team, and I think that just like a compass, it's always going to point north in the end. I think it'll find its true. Jamison Crowder is the number one guy on that team. Rashad Perriman is a good player. Denzel Mims a good player. But when you have Jamison Crowder, eventually you're going to realize we got to force him the ball if we want to get a win. But, they don't even want to win. So maybe they won't. But honestly, Jamison Crowder is just too good to continue these pedestrian games. I really hope he has a good one against the Raiders. Maybe 36 was a little hopeful. Maybe even putting him on the list and leaving off Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mims was a little hopeful. But I think Jamison Crowder has it. He's a great player, great talent. It really all just comes down to Joe Flacco and Adam Gase. Up next at 35, we have CeeDee Lamb taking on the Ravens. The good news is that Andy Dalton looks all right. The bad news is the Cowboys are complete trash. So it's a shit show. The Ravens do have a bunch of players on COVID, the COVID reserve list. So they might be a little banged up. They may be a little weaker than normal. But even the Ravens' second team is probably better than the Cowboys, let's be honest. CeeDee Lamb, though, 5 catches, 21 yards on 7 targets last week. I think they really dispersed the ball evenly between all of the wide receivers. So it really just comes down to who's going to have the big plays, who gets open at the right times. It could be Gallup. It could be CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb could end up doing better than Amari Cooper. It's always possible with that team. Hopefully Andy Dalton can just keep it under control and stop turning the ball over. All right, let's move on to 34. We got Sammy Watkins. He's returned the Lizard King himself, 4 catches for 38 yards on 7 targets. Good to see Sammy Watkins back. I think he will take that wide receiver 2 role back over. He was being a reliable pass catcher earlier in the season, which is something that just doesn't go together. Reliable, Sammy Watkins, yeah, hard to say even. But after last year where he put up his huge week 1 and then just fell off, doesn't seem like that's the case this season. Mahomes did throw 49 times, and damn near every pass went to Tyreek Hill, so I don't see that happening every time. Probably both of those won't happen. He'll probably throw a little bit less, but I do like Sammy Watkins. He's always primed up for a big game. I think this week it could be his week. The Broncos defense is not that they have a good front end defense, but the secondary could use some work, and just the fact that the offense is so poor, the Chiefs will have the ball that much more. The Broncos can only play so much without just being exhausted and tired of their head coach's bullshit. At the 33 spot, we have Jakobi Meyers taking on the Chargers. 5 catches, 52 yards on 6 targets. He led the team last week in receiving. Cam Newton, not looking great, though. 18 pass attempts, 9 completions. Jakobi Meyers, though, 94% of the snaps. Should look to see more production in this Chargers game. I think it'll be quite the shootout. The Chargers have a very explosive offense. The Patriots are going to have to throw to keep up with them. Hopefully, Jakobi Meyers is the guy. You really never know, though. Nothing about that team is certain. I do like the fact that he plays so many snaps. I think that is really what lends him to be this high up on the list and what gives you confidence in starting him over any of the other wide receivers. 32, we have Marvin Jones Jr. 6 catches, 48 yards on 12 targets last week. That's a whole lot of targets. Not going to see that again if Kenny Golladay comes back, which is kind of up in the air right now. But he did practice. Kenny Golladay did practice in limited fashion on Monday of last week before either re-aggravating it or the team just shut it down. I'm not quite sure. So it's always possible that he'll play again this week. Marvin Jones, though, great talent, can always go for 3 touchdowns. He does have a tough matchup against the Bears, but we just saw last week with the Packers, the Bears are beatable. That is for sure. At 31, Michael Gallup taking on the Ravens. Touched on this earlier when we were talking about CeeDee Lamb. Andy Dalton's back, apparently. We'll see how it goes from here on, but everybody's getting love. 6 catches, 41 yards on 8 targets. Pretty dispersed. He just looked everybody's way this weekend. If you're the Michael Gallup owner, it's hard to trust. The only thing you can trust is that he's playing 76% of the snaps. Hopefully Andy Dalton can continue this run. It's yet to be seen if he can do this for multiple weeks. They paid him for a reason. He's got to step up. Michael Gallup's doing his part. We just need those accurate passes from Andy Dalton, and we'll be on our way. Cracking on into the top 30, we have Sterling Sheppard taking on the Seahawks. Had himself another very solid game. 7 catches, 64 yards, 8 targets. Always leading the team in snaps since he's been back. He's the go-to guy. The question is, can Colt McCoy produce as the starter? Daniel Jones got hurt last week. Does not look to be ready to play this week. Colt McCoy has done it before, but he's also been murdered on the field, so hopefully he can stay healthy. James Harrison, watch out. Moving on to 29, we have Chase Claypool taking on Washington. Recording this on Tuesday night, so have no idea how he's played on Wednesday. But over the past 4 weeks, he's had 10 targets per game, which is just absurd. He's a killer. He's got the speed. Mapletron's got the juice. I like him this week against Washington. I don't know if James Conner will be back, but either way, that run offense has been terrible for the past month and a half, maybe even 2 months. So Big Ben's been having to sling it, and when you got 3 weapons like that, they all get to eat, and Chase Claypool's been a touchdown machine. At 28, we have Corey Davis, 3 catches, 70 yards on 3 targets. He only played 2 less snaps than A.J. Brown, So it's definitely good volume there. You know he's the wide receiver too. You know he's the second target on the team. Jonnu Smith has disappeared. Adam Humphries disappeared. I think Corey Davis is probably the only other guy you want to start on that wide receiving core. Number 27, T. Higgins, taking on the Dolphins. 5 catches, 44 yards on 5 targets. Led the team in snaps with 92%. It was not Ryan Finley. Thank God. That dude is terrible. They started Brandon Allen. He looked decent at best. T. Higgins is a monster. It's yet to be seen if he's going to be able to produce better than what he did last week. If that offense can get clicking, then it's going to be good for him. It really just all comes down to Brandon Allen. And if he goes, the team goes, because T. Higgins is doing his job. He's stepping up, caught all of his targets. 44 yards, though, not what you want to see. Just really shows that they're not moving the ball down the field very well. Number 26, we have Deebo Samuel, 11 catches, 133 yards on 13 targets. That's what I'm talking about. First game back, there was no Brandon Aiyuk. Not that that would have even made a difference with those kind of numbers. He is the go-to guy. Didn't expect this, to be honest. Nick Mullins is a gunslinger, though. The Bills' secondary just let up some points against the Chargers. Justin Herbert definitely was making some plays. I think Nick Mullins can too, honestly. Nick Mullins is better than people give him credit. Might end up taking Jimmy G's job. He looked horrid. So it's really a wait and see thing here how him and Aiyuk kind of merge together. At number 25, we have Tyler Boyd taking on the Dolphins. 3 catches, 15 yards, but he did have 6 targets. I have him over T. Higgins strictly because of the targets. He was second on the team in snaps with Brandon Allen once again. If he goes, the team goes. It's going to be fun to see how that turns out moving on this season and this week. Number 24, DJ Chark, taking on the Vikings. Quite the surprise. Middle of the week last week, he just randomly had a rib injury that they said he was out. It's truly unfortunate they missed him. They may have even won the game last week had they had him. The fact that Luton and Minshew are not there, it's yet to be seen how he's going to produce. But when you're that talented, as long as the ball's near you, he's going to make a play. He's a great player. I think as long as they continue to feed him like they should, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is because he's never played with elite quarterback talent. Although I do think Gardner Minshew is better than most people think. Moving on to 23, Jarvis Landry taking on the Titans. It feels good to have Jarvis Landry up this high. Coming off a monster 8-catch, 143-yard, 1 touchdown game on 11 targets. It really was the weather. And the 3 games since Odell went down, he played in 3 games that had terrible weather. This was the first time the weather was good. He went crazy. I think this week the Titans are going to be putting on the moves. They're going to be scoring points like they normally do. Derrick Henry's going to be feasting. They're probably going to have to throw themselves back into the game. I like Jarvis Landry this week. It is worth noting, though, you got to look up the weather because that team, their luck with weather is anything but luck. At 22, JuJu Smith-Schuster taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Haven't seen how this week's game is going to go because we're recording on Tuesday night, but he's been a model of consistency over the past 5 weeks, 9.4 targets per game. Just the ultimate dog. He'll go out and he'll block for you. He'll do whatever you need. He's one of Big Ben's favorite targets. Even when Diontae Johnson pops off, Juju's still there. Even when Juju has a below average game, he's still seeing solid production. He has a very safe floor. And against Washington, I like his odds. On to 21, we have Justin Jefferson taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. 7 catches, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns on 13 targets. one of the best wide receiver rookies in a long time. He juked the fucking soul out of somebody in the red zone. It was a beautiful, beautiful play. Got himself another touchdown on that play. Adam Thielen, that's the question mark. He tested positive for COVID-19 before week 12, so it's uncertain whether he'll play. He could be reactivated, so it is worth noting. But if he has COVID, depending on how bad it is, I mean, Greg's got it right now and it's fucking him up. So he could be out this week. He could be sore, or he could have had a very mild case and he's totally fine. It really all depends on just his body, how it happened. Either way, Justin Jefferson, that dude's the man against the Jaguars, too. He's going to have himself another day. All right, let's break into these 20s. Robert Woods taking on the Cardinals was the leader of last week's game against the 49ers. 7 catches, 80 yards, 12 targets, played 100% of the snaps. I do think Cooper Kupp is the main go-to guy. Robert Woods has done this kind of stuff before. He's not the most reliable. The Cardinals will be looking to get back on track, so I think the game will be pretty good. I have faith in Robert Woods as a wide receiver too, but there's always the bust weeks with Robert Woods. Hopefully, we just don't see any of them in the near future. At 19, got Brandin Cooks, 5 catches, 85 yards on 5 targets. Will Fuller had a crazy game. They basically had the same stat line until Will Fuller got 2 nice touchdown catches. But unfortunately for Will Fuller, he is now suspended for 6 games. So, does this help him? Obviously, it lessens the amount of mouths there are to feed, but now every single wide cornerback one is going to be on Brandin Cooks. For the most part, he was already seeing a lot of coverage, but now I think that he's going to see even more like people game scripting him out of games, which is not good for your wide receiver one, but he is a true wide receiver one. He can be elite. It really just depends if he can stay healthy. It's good to know that Deshaun Watson's on fire. Over the last 6 games, Deshaun Watson's had a 71% completion rate for 1,700 yards and 16 total touchdowns, which is just absurd. I like Brandin Cooks going forward. I think this week will be the week to see how it really goes. It's a tough Colts matchup, but if he produces here, then he's going to produce every week, and we can see those weaker matchups later in the season. He's probably just going to flourish. At number 18, we have the third Steelers wide receiver, the trifecta, Diontae Johnson. Once again, have not seen the Wednesday game. I'm recording this on Tuesday night, but Diontae Johnson is an absolute stud. Over the past 3 games, he's had over 12 targets. Just absurd. I think if he could probably have a good game, which today for everyone, but tomorrow for me. I do like his just potential in general. And then going against Washington with James Conner being out and their run game just not being good to begin with, I see Diontae Johnson having himself another great game. On to 17, we got Cooper Kupp, 2 for 11 or 2 for 41 on 5 targets. Not what you were looking for. 89% of the snaps, and he was actually third behind Robert Woods and Josh Reynolds. I think this kind of game script, it just wasn't his week. Game script made it this way. He is a better player than his numbers are showing. If he had some more of those catches, he could have had himself a great game. It's really just a matter of Jared Goff is not always the most accurate quarterback, and with Richard Sherman back, that secondary definitely felt the boost all the way around. He gave him that buff. So I like Cooper Kupp going forward. Cooper Kupp against the Cardinals. That's going to be a good matchup. Patrick Peterson, it's Tough to see who he'll be on. I would imagine Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, but either way, they can always break out a big play for you. On to 16, we have Amari Cooper taking on the Ravens. 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets, 81% of the snaps. Andy Dalton's back, like I mentioned. I don't know if I can trust any of the wide receivers against the Ravens with Andy Dalton looking sus one week, looking pretty average this past week. It could be anybody's game in that wide receiving core. I think Amari Cooper is obviously the best talent, but that doesn't mean that Marcus Peters can't shut him down. It's going to be a tough week for Amari. Hopefully the Cowboys can make some stuff happen. And it's also worth noting that the Ravens might not even have all their players, so who really knows how that's going to go. At 15, we have Tyler Lockett. 3 catches, 23 yards on 4 targets. Classic Tyler Lockett. It's boom or bust every week for this guy. And last week just happened to be DK Metcalf's week. It's going to happen sometimes against the Giants, which is a pretty solid defense, I would say. I think it's also worth noting that Cole McCoy is the QB. So they might have the ball the entire time. They might be beating them so bad they don't need to pass. Either way, Tyler Lockett can always have a good game, can always burn you. It's really just a gamble each week. But he's one of those guys that if as soon as you bench him, that's when he pops off. So you kind of got to ride with him. On to 14, we have Kenny Golladay taking on the Bears. Still not sure if Kenny Golladay is going to play. He was listed as a limited participant in last week's injury report on Monday and was not playing on Tuesday, not practicing at least. So I don't know if that was a sign that they were trying to give him some rest one more week. Maybe they thought he was ready on Monday and he re-aggravated it. It's really all up in the air. Just going to have to watch and see if he practices this week because that team really needs him. They are not looking good without him. Marvin Jones can only do so much. Kenny G he's a smooth boy. They need that man, and I'm sure a lot of you people do as well. On to 13, we have Michael Thomas taking on the Falcons. 4-catch, 50-yard game. Not what you want to see. Taysom Hill is poisoning all of the talent out there fantasy-wise. The only one he's looking out for is himself and Latavius Murray, which is just insane to think about when you have Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, that your two studs are going to be Taysom Hill and Latavius Murray, but that's just how it goes. Michael Thomas had himself a pretty good day against the Falcons the last time they played. I think we'll see something similar. It's going to be a little bit better offensively, I would imagine. Taysom Hill was struggling in that first game. I think the Falcons are finding the rhythm. Hopefully they'll have Julio back. And if they do, should be a pretty interesting game. On to 12, we have Davante Parker taking on the Bengals. Had himself a great game with Ryan Fitzpatrick. 8 catches, 119 yards on 14 targets. It is worth noting that Tua is going to be the starter if he's healthy. That's what Brian Flores said. But he is still nursing a thumb injury. It's really all up in the air who's going to be the starter. I have the ranking with Fitzmagic in there just because I'm hopeful. I'm hoping they see the light. But if Tua plays, I would probably bump him down a little bit. But when Fitz is in, it's another level. He feeds Davante Parker because he knows how good he is. He makes, honestly, some pretty ridiculous throws. He definitely is not scared. I think Tua, it's a little much for him at certain times, but Davante Parker's a stud either way. He's going to have a pretty nice day against the Bengals. On to number 11 with Allen Robinson taking on the Lions. Coming off a 2-touchdown game, very impressive. 13 targets, 8 catches, 74 yards. Mitchell Trubisky should be the starter. When Matt Nagy was asked, he said, I don't see why not, which is classic Nagy, just never telling you what the fuck's going on. But Allen Robinson, at the end of the day, is a stud. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, he can produce. And we saw that last time. He gets a lot of garbage time catches too. So always love to see that when you're out here trying to fish for some fantasy points. All right, let's get into this top 10. We have Calvin Ridley taking on the Saints, coming off a 6-catch, 50-yard game for one touchdown. He had 9 targets. He definitely misses Julio. Julio eats up a lot of coverage. Hopefully he'll be back this week. Zacharias, I'm not even going to pretend like I know how to say his name. He's out on IR. So that opens up an additional few targets here and there for Calvin Ridley. He's a beast. You know it. He's not having the games he was earlier in the season, but either way, with Matt Ryan still there, the Saints defense is tough. Calvin Ridley's going to produce no matter what. It really doesn't matter. On to number 9, we have Terry McLaurin. 7 catches, 92 yards on 9 targets. A bit of a tougher matchup against the Steelers, but he's honestly proved that he's matchup proof. He's the number 1 guy for a reason. He's pretty much the only guy on the team who is reliable and a consistent pass catcher. I think he's going to have a pretty average game for his standards against the Steelers, but average for him is way better than most. At number 8, we have DeAndre Hopkins. 5 catches, 55 yards, 7 targets. Probably the lowest he's ever been on the list. And it really all comes down to Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be quite the battle. Kyler Murray's still banged up, so it's yet to be seen if he's going to be 100%. They might end up leaning on the run just like they did this past week. Could be another Kenyon Drake big week. And if it happens, DeAndre Hopkins pays. On to 7, Stefon Diggs, taking on the 49ers. He will see some Richard Sherman. That's going to be a tough matchup. I was hoping he would have a better week last week, taking on the Chargers, but still had 9 targets, 7 catches, 39 yards. Could be worse, but no touchdown. At 6, A.J. Brown taking on the Browns. He proved he's back. 4 catches, 98 yards, a touchdown on 6 targets. He had a super long touchdown run, a 69-yard catch. Nice. He is the man out there in Tennessee. He's really taken into his own. I think going forward, he's going to be great and even into the future. On to number 5, we have DK Metcalf coming off a fantastic week. A 10-catch, 177-yard game, 13 targets. That is some elite shit right there. Taking on the Giants. I like it. I think he could produce something similar once again. Who knows? It could be a Tyler Lockett week. It's always up in the air, but DK Metcalf has proved he's elite. He's a great player. He can run any route on the route tree. He can make big-time catches, big-time plays, and hopefully he continues to do so for your squad. At number 4, we have Keenan Allen taking on the Patriots. Definitely one of his worst games, and worst is still very good. 4 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown, but he had 10 targets. Austin Eckler's return definitely ate into his target share a little bit. I don't think Justin Herbert was forcing the ball downfield as much as he normally does, but we've seen it before. Earlier in the season against the Panthers, I believe, Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen both had 30 fantasy points. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. The Patriots do like to slow down the game a little bit with their offense, so he might not see as many opportunities as he's used to, but the Chargers offense is electric. I like Keenan Allen going forward. Hopefully he can bounce back and see one of those monster games once again. At 3, we have Julio Jones taking on the Saints. Raheem Mostert said he is hopeful he will play. So I think that's a little more reliable than what Matt Nagy says. I don't see why not. I don't see why Mitchell Trubisky shouldn't be the starter. So I think Julio could have played last week. I think they held him out just to, you don't want your superstar to get hurt, especially in a season that doesn't mean anything. So hopefully he's back this week, though. That'll be good for him. That'll be good for Calvin Ridley. The Saints, Marshawn Lattimore is definitely good. That defense is definitely good, but the Falcons can put up points and lose. They've shown that they got the skills for it. At 2, knee-jerk reaction of the week, Tyreek Hill. Broncos greatest receiver of all time? I don't know. You tell me. Definitely not. But a 13 catch, 269 yards, and 3 touchdown game is fucking ridiculous. 15 targets. That we saw other people have more targets this week and didn't even come close to that. Austin Eckler had more targets and wasn't even close to 269 yards. Do you remember when it was cool to have 1,000 yards receiving? And then Tyreek Hill comes and gets a fucking fourth of that in a game? It's absurd. I'm at a loss for words. 57.9 PPR points. That's the 7th most of all time. I'm blown away. I just can't wait to see someone else break that. I hope Tyreek Hill breaks it on. I wish he had another touchdown to top that 300 and get that 4th touchdown, because that is just absurd. Patrick Mahomes is a god. Tyreek Hill is one of the fastest humans on the face of the planet. It was a great time to watch. At 1, we have Davante Adams. Doesn't matter who he's playing. It doesn't matter where they're playing. If Aaron Rodgers wants to get the ball to Davante Adams, he will. He's going to feast. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Thanks for checking out this video. If you have any issue with where we put any of these players or who we put on this list, go ahead and let us know in the comments. We can handle the heat, and we will not get out of the kitchen.
Bully us if you'd like. We're ready.
We can handle it. We're tough boys, but we are so desperate for approval. Hence the YouTube channel.